So the first thing I always look for is the dead wood. So I always call it the 4Ds. So the first one is dead wood, deranged wood, diseased wood, decorative wood. So the first one being dead wood, you take out the dead wood first of the tree. So that's tree that's not going to function anymore. It's superfluous to the tree's needs. The tree has decided to shut it off. Then we inspect that dead wood. Has it died because it's no longer able to look after it and it's got too many branches? So in good times, trees will make more branches and then suddenly go, oh my gosh, it's a drought coming on, I better get rid of some. So it gets rid of some branches. If it's just naturally occurring dead wood, could also be to do with age, it could be to do with another tree next to it, could be all sorts of reasons why branches die in a tree. We'll have a look at it. But one of the things that we want to make sure is that dead wood is not being caused by a pathogen. So we'll inspect the dead wood to make sure that it hasn't got borer holes or borer track marks in it. It hasn't got fungus on it. It may have some saprophytic fungi on it, but it's not fungi that's going to kill it. That only comes in after death. So that's why dead wooding is important in a tree, because it actually gives you clues as to why that might have happened. Secondly, we then go on to looking at what we call deranged wood. So all the branches that are either crossing over or running into another branch, or it's not doing well. It's a live branch, but it's in the wrong spot. It's going from the bottom left-hand side of the tree coming out the top right, and it shouldn't be doing that. It should be going out to the outer canopy and forming what we call an umbrella foliage. So all the leaves should be on the outside of the tree in a nice sort of rounded shape, whatever shape that is. It doesn't really matter. It's unusual to find a square, but you know what I mean. In a nice shape that's getting sunlight all the way around. If you have a branch starting from here that's grown from this branch down, a small branch from here growing off another branch that's going back up through the tree that way, it's not going to work well in the long term. It's likely to be a branch that the tree will kill off or die in time anyway. So you might as well get it out now before it causes more damage to what it's rubbing against. So that's deranged wood. The next one we look at is diseased wood. So it's different to looking at diseased wood in dead wood, because in dead wood you're trying to work out what happened to it and why did it cause it to die. In diseased wood, you're actually sort of seeing, oh, this is a live branch, but the bark's coming off. It's oozing a lot. It's got epicormic growth on it. It's got the ends have died off. It's got chew marks all over it. It's got cicada holes in it where they've laid their eggs in it. So all these sort of things can actually end up killing a branch that may or may not go back to the rest of the tree. So some fungi will start at one point and then spread further. Borers may start at one point and spread further. So what you're trying to do is to sort of say, can we treat this branch and just look after it, or should we remove it to save the rest of the tree? And that's a decision we have to make based on what we see. So that's different. So diseased wood is different to dead diseased wood. So this is actually live material. And then lastly, what we do is things that are decorative. So if the owner of the tree says, I want you to make this into a square, I want this into a weeping whale, I'd like a dancing angel shape. You say, great, fine. Let me look after the other three things first, and then whatever we've got left of the tree, we'll then see what sort of shape we can make the tree into. So I don't get that many people asking for weeping whales and dancing angels. It's a bit of a joke I have with some people, but you know, I think a tree that is left unpruned is the prettiest. Tree pruning is a way of controlling a tree. So there are reasons why you would do some pruning, but if in this fourth category of decorative, if it doesn't have dead wood, if it doesn't have deranged wood, if it doesn't have diseased wood, don't prune it. Leave it alone. It's happy. It's doing all the right things. So why are we coming along and shaping it? To me, it's a bit like plastic surgery. If you're not happy in the body you've got, that's... So you may end up having to decide whether a tree is not necessarily pruned, although you can prune it for those reasons, but you may actually end up having to decide, these trees are going to be too big in too small an area. So a liquid amber is actually classified as a park tree anyway. So whoever put the liquid amber in the front yard, next to a road, under power lines, between two houses, is the sort of person who probably shouldn't have put a liquid amber in there in the first place, or didn't realise it's going to grow to 60, 80 feet. We're talking 25 metres. That's a fairly big tree in a fairly confined space. Again, having an arborist who actually can tell you, look, have you thought about this? It's much easier now with Google, because people can look up before you plant something, Right? So it's far better to put the right plant in the first place than have a plant that you're constantly having to prune, reprune, prune and reprune because it's the wrong plant. It's like saying, I liked my child when he was 3, but now he's getting too tall. So I'm going to keep chopping off the legs to keep him little, so he's still my little boy. And it's not going to happen. If you wanted a little thing in your life, get a sausage dog. Don't have a big thing. You can't make a big thing small. No different can you make a small thing big and say, I've got a goldfish, I wish I had a whale. Well, go and buy a whale. But you can't have both. You can't turn one into another. And the same with trees. So the appropriate question to start all this before you prune a tree is work out, is it the right tree? And often I say to people too, when you're pruning a tree, once you start pruning a tree, you're becoming a slave to pruning a tree. Because you're actually altering the way the tree grows. It will then suddenly grow in new places faster. It may be getting more light where it wasn't before. If you do it at the wrong time of year, and I've seen some shocking cases where people have pruned, say, Japanese maples, and then, that was a week before we had a heat wave. They've pruned all the tops off. The sun comes down and burns all the bark. They've had some very bad sunburn cases because that's a tree that's particularly got thin bark, and it doesn't take much to cook it. It also has a lot of pigmentation in there too that can actually help it. So, that's the sort of stuff that you don't want to have problems with.